Now it's time to get to know your watercolors. Color mixing is all about knowing your paints, and swatching them is the first step in getting to know them better. Manufacturers test their watercolors, but depending on how you use them, you might have a different experience. So swatching out each of your colors really tells you how a watercolor will work for you. Plus, you'll get to have a handy reference so that you won't have to guess how the watercolors will look on paper. A lot of people have different ways that they swatch their watercolors. Some of them are simpler and some of them are more complex. Here's how I suggest that you swatch your watercolors to get all of the information that you might need in an efficient way in a small space. I designed these little swatch tabs so that you can put basically any information that you might possibly need about a paint into one little rectangle. Here are all of the sections. Pigment number. As I just explained, every paint comes with a paint name, but to really know what's inside a paint, you need to know the pigment number. So that's the very first square that we have here. Color name. If you're like most people, you probably don't go around saying things like PB29 or PB15:3. So you might want to know the regular name for things like ultramarine or phthalo blue. So I have a space for that here. Permanency. As I said before, this is a section that talks about the light fastness of a paint. You can record the manufacturer's light fastness rating here, or you can do your own test for light fastness and record that here. Staining. This is how difficult it is to remove a watercolor paint from the page once it's been put down. A paint can be staining, non-staining, or semi-staining. Opacity. This is how much a watercolor covers up the white of the page. A paint can be opaque, semi-opaque, semi-transparent, or transparent. Granulation. This is just so that you know if the paint granulates or not. The next section tests a few things. First of all, use a waterproof pen to draw a line across the first tick mark in the box. This is to help us test for transparency. Next, wet the box entirely. After that, take some of the paint that you're going to swatch and paint it down from the top of the box to the last tick mark that is in there. That's about halfway through. By doing this, we can see what the paint looks like when it is painted into a wash. Once the paint is dry, draw another line on the second tick mark of the box. This allows us to compare what the black line looks like over paint and under the paint. If it looks exactly the same, then the paint is totally transparent. If it looks a little different, then it is either semi-transparent or semi-opaque. And if it is totally covered up, or mostly covered up, then it is opaque. The next step is to take a slightly stiff brush, dip it in water, and rub it around the third check mark. Rub it across the entire box, and then pick up the paint with some tissue paper. I do this 3 times. This is to test the staining. If the paint comes off entirely, the paint is non-staining. If it kind of comes off, then it's semi-staining, and if it basically doesn't come off, then it is definitely staining. Check your phthalo paint. That's probably going to be the most staining paint that you have. Let's move on to the box labeled Dispersion. This test will tell you how the paint moves if it's put into a wet area. This is really helpful if you want to just drop in a little paint here or there. If you know that the paint moves a lot, then you will put less paint. If you know that the paint doesn't move so much, you might not use it for those kind of flowy paintings. Wet the entire box and then take a bit of paint and just touch the tip of your brush into the left-hand side of the box. Leave it alone and let it flow. This is important because a paint with high dispersion will spread out a lot in your painting. If you want a bit more control or that's difficult for you, then you're going to be looking for something with lower dispersion. But if you want a paint that spreads out easily and mixes with other colors very quickly, then you're going to want to paint with high dispersion. The next box is labeled Mass Tone. This is just the regular color of the paint, so that you know what it looks like without being in a wash or dispersed or anything like that. Just dip your brush into the paint and fill in that box. The last box is just a space for you to put the manufacturer name. And there you have it. You have completed your own swatch that gives you all of the information you could ever need to know about your paints.